Live from Beit Shemesh and broadcasted around the world, you are listening to the Frum Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Nahum Kligman. Interviews and advice from Jewish entrepreneurs from around the world. Listen, learn, be Matzliach.
Welcome to episode 22 of the Frum Entrepreneur. And today I have an exciting entrepreneur, Mendel Segal, who has, it's funny, when I tried to originally get him on the show, and I thought maybe he wouldn't be that interesting to our listeners because, he's just getting started. I said, no, you're exactly the type of guy. On our show, we have entrepreneurs from all different levels. Basically, in a nutshell, Mendel produces his own barbecue sauce and is getting into stores now. We're going to hear his story. It's absolutely fantastic. But, a lot of people have an idea to create a product, whether it's a jelly or a jam or a barbecue sauce or whatever it is they want to do, but to actually go through the process and to get it done and to manufacture and to label and everything that goes into it to get into store shelves, that's an entrepreneur following after his dream. So, Mendel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's funny. Again, you talk about people that have ideas and stuff and, not being able to or nervous to follow through. Will people like it? How will it come out? Who am I to get my product out there? And so, first of all, Yasher Koach to you for, following your idea and taking it and actually getting it to this level. And, we'll hear the story. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about, basically about your barbecue sauce? What's its name, and then we'll go a little bit back into about you yourself, and then we'll go a little bit more deeper into the product itself.
Sure, it's an uphill climb all the time. My barbecue sauce, right now. I currently have a barbecue sauce and seasoning, which in Kansas City and most places we call a rub. My brand is called Mendel's Kansas City, and I use the name RaBBi-Q, which has got the BB and the Q in different colors. So it's got it's kind of just came to me. It looks neat. It's a lot of fun. That's also my team name when I compete in barbecue competitions. So it's a Kansas City style sauce, so tomato based and sweet, with a little bit of heat at the end. And it's very mild in the sense that it doesn't have any overwhelming smoke flavors on its own. So it's able to be used in all different types of forms, and the feedback I'm getting from it is quite inspiring. That's
awesome. So first of all, you're in Kansas City now?
Yeah, I live in Overland Park, Kansas.
Amazing. All right, so we got to backtrack a bit because we got to see, where were you born?
Chicago, Illinois.
So from Chicago to Kansas, creating your own barbecue sauce. Let's hear your story. You were born and raised in Chicago?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Chicago in West Rogers Park. I went to Cheder, Lubavitch there, went through K through 8th grade. Then I went to Mesivta in Chicago for a couple of years. And then when I did my Yeshiva Gedola, mostly in Miami, with a short stint in Argentina. And
Argentina?
Yeah, exactly. I try to get around.
Picking up ingredients, the Miami heat and Argentinian spices, I hear you.
Yeah, probably my first introduction to any culture that was seriously into their flesh was definitely in Argentina. And cooking over open fire. That is an everyday occurrence there.
Right.
And then I got my smicha in Los Angeles.
Oh, my gosh. This story gets better. This is fantastic. All right, so wait a second. Let's backtrack a bit. So Chicago to Miami. What was the Yeshiva in Miami you went to?
The Yeshiva Gedola of Miami.
Oh, it's called Yeshiva Gedola of Miami,
Yep.
Okay. And then you went and you got smicha in Los Angeles.
Yep, Chabad of Westwood had a smicha program. Then now it moved to L.A. to the yeshiva there.
Very good. Then after you got your smicha, so you got married before or after you got your smicha?
After. After smicha, I wanted to go into business. I've always kind of had that spark and desire to want to buy and sell stuff, if you will.
Right.
And I had some introduction to the diamond and jewelry business while I was in yeshiva in Miami. I got to know some people in the business there. So right out of smicha, I decided that was kind of the avenue I wanted to see how I could break into that business, which is a difficult one if you're not born into it.
Right.
So that was the first thing I started after smicha. I started working for a jewelry store in Chicago, one of the suburbs, Northbrook.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for a little while. Then I was hired by a diamond wholesale company out of Israel. I worked for them as a rep for a while, and I was a traveling sales rep, more or less on the road 5 days a week, or locally bouncing around every day. And that was great. I did that for a little while until I got married. And shortly after I got married, I kind of wanted a little bit of a change.
Right. So wait, before you got smicha, were you ever in business before, or like as you said, coming out of your smicha program and getting into the jewelry business, that was your first, taste of business, I should say?
So I was always doing something. I mean, like a lot of people I know and their kids, you're always buying and selling stuff at school. My last year in Beis Medrash, I started a coffee business out of my dorm room. And every morning I do different types of kind of modeled after a mini Starbucks. I do lattes and smoothies and all different types of drinks. And I got to the point where I couldn't keep up. It was absolutely out of control, and I didn't have a lot of equipment or anything. But I did that for a good portion of the year, and it was great because it put spending money in my pocket. But it also gave me some valuable lessons of, the key is just sourcing everything at the right price and being able to tag on a margin and keep everybody caffeinated.
Especially in yeshiva, I guess it's much better than the watered down stuff that you get.
Right. I mean, my competition was free coffee, so that's kind of difficult. But at the same time, quality was vastly better than what was available to the masses.
Did you have RaBBi'im buying from you?
I did. I had one. I think I kind of, it seemed like I kind of bribed him to have a chavrusa with me because I'd supply the coffee in the morning.
That's great. Okay, so you're selling diamonds, you're selling jewelry, and then all of a sudden, and where were you based out of at this time?
This was in Chicago. I was working in Chicago at the time.
So we went back to Chicago.
Right. And got married. My wife is from Kansas, which I guess we'll get to that part in a second. We met through a shadchan, basically. And
it's funny, I only met one person from Kansas. I forgot her name, but she came to us a few times for Shabbos when she was here in Israel for the year. Was your wife in Israel for the year?
She did go to seminary in Israel for a year. Yeah.
Oh, what's her name?
Dasi Bergman.
I know a Donald Bergman, but it's another story. Dasi Bergman. No, I don't think it's Dasi. I remember the name. We had a girl from me. Okay, anyway. So you met her in Chicago.
Well, actually, met her in Kansas. I went to Kansas to meet her. I was also able to do a little bit of, there was a couple of jewelry stores there I was trying to sell to. So it kind of worked out nicely.
Oh, that's great. So you went to Kansas to sell some diamonds, and you ended up giving someone a diamond.
Exactly. At least I was able to get a good deal on it.
That's right. You can't get away with a small stone with her, right?
You got to. I mean, most jewelers would probably say their wives probably have humble jewelry.
That's true.
You got to sell.
Right, like the shoemaker's sons don't have shoes.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're in Kansas. You got married. So when you got married, you lived in Kansas?
No, still in Chicago. So that's when I got out of jewelry and I started working
with her.
Yep, still in Chicago. We moved back to Chicago. That's where I grew up. That's where I knew. That's where my job was. And then I started working with a friend of mine. He was working for a commercial real estate company doing primarily office space leasing.
Okay.
So I was curious about it. I wanted to change. So I started working with him and pretty much just cold calling nonstop, which is a lot of what I did for the diamond company. And just going around building office to office, building to building, what we call canvassing. So trying to see if anybody's interested in moving out of their current office. And we represented a couple of buildings, but we would take any deal we could get our hands on.
Right.
So I did that for a little while, and that was about the time we had our first kid. And my wife, being that I have a very small family, and she has a nice large family, but they're all in Kansas. So she really started suggesting that we think about moving near her folks. And I decided, you know what, now is about as good of a time as any to give it a shot.
I'm sorry, I just got to ask this question.
Yeah.
Is Dasi's English name Dorothy?
No, but people say that all the time. I get confused. They're Darcy.
Oh, you have heard that before?
Yeah, we never get any Wizard of Oz references.
Never, right? Okay, so Dasi has a lot of family in Kansas. You thought about moving there, so you moved over there.
Yep, and I was going to reinvent myself a little bit and see what business, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up.
What year was this around?
2006, roughly.
Oh, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So 2006, you moved to Kansas, and you're looking what to do. So what'd you come up with?
So I had this idea that I wanted to get into banking, personal banking, and possible investment banking. And thinking about getting an MBA, and started interviewing around different banks. And this was right about going into 2007, so we all remember what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't pan out. I had a lot of people say that around here, actually 2 interviewers specifically said, around here nobody's going to hire a guy that looks like you, meaning yarmulke, beard, and so I was pretty, kind of caught me a little bit there. But anyway, that's what they were saying, and it was pretty true. I had one company offer me a teller position, but they said I have to work on Saturday because that's when they need this specific position is mandatory Saturday. Oh my God. Thanks.
Oh man.
Thanks, guys. But either way, it's all, all happens.
It's all Hashem.
Exactly. So it came up that there's a supermarket that has a kosher department that was expanding, and they were looking for a mashgiach/manager.
Okay.
And I decided, I got to do something. We were living in my in-laws' basement, and as much as that was great, I needed to start doing something, establishing myself. So it was a good job. The benefits were solid. I started doing that in October of 2007, and that was my first foray into the food business.
So you weren't always into barbecue, so to speak?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I always liked food. Always a food guy.
Like any other good Jew.
And cook a little here, cook a little there. But that was my first getting into anything more than just some home cooking. I had to run a kitchen. So you had a kitchen, and I started realizing that I enjoyed food. I enjoyed serving people food, and I had a little bit of a knack for it. And slowly but surely, we kind of built it up a little, added things to the menu. And that's where I discovered the concept of barbecue. When I say barbecue, back in Chicago and even most people from New York, you say barbecue, you think hot dogs and hamburgers, stick them on the grill.
Right.
But around here, when you talk about barbecue, the term barbecue means slow cooked meat over low heat with smoke flavor, or using real wood to give it a good smoke. And it's a passion of time. It takes time. Nothing's fast. and it's an art form. There's so many variables that go into it. And I tasted, there was an event in town. The Jewish Federation here had an event where a local big barbecue company did a kosher one night a year. They made kosher barbecue. And I went to the event. Somebody invited me. I went, tasted it. And I'm like, ooh, I like this stuff. I wonder how I could figure out how to do some of my own. And slowly but surely got into it that way. And then around then, I was hired by the local Vada Kashrus in Kansas City to be their executive director.
Oh, nice.
So I switched into that and then kind of jumped head over heels into the kashrus industry, learned a lot about, still learning a lot about commercial kashrus.
What year is this? This is 2000.
This was probably 13 about.
Okay.
And when started settling in a little bit, I was talking to our Rav Machshir, the rabbi of the Orthodox shul in town, BIAV, Rabbi Rockoff, Daniel Rockoff.
Okay.
And we were talking about an event, some type of kosher event we could do, possibly a fundraiser. And he suggested, he heard about that in Memphis, they do a kosher barbecue competition. So if they do it in Memphis, it's also a big barbecue town. We got to do it in Kansas City. Exactly. So I started looking into it, and that's really kind of when it all took off. My passion for barbecue was lit, pun intended. That realized that really enjoyed it, and enjoyed the process of coming up with recipes and making it. So we had our first event in 2012. Actually, we had our first Kansas City kosher barbecue competition. Great event. People came from all over. It was an incredible event, and we just had our fourth annual.
Orthodox community, or did Jews
all over?
From
Jews came all over the spectrum, and a couple from out of town too. And we just had our fourth a couple weeks ago, and it was also thousands of people. People even flew in from all over the country to visit, and it's really become an incredible event. But that's what really launched me.
What's this event called?
Into the barbecue.
This is not the event you were just at in southern New England.
No, that was another different kosher barbecue competition.
Okay, so this is a competition. It's a once-a-year competition, and people. And so, who actually does the barbecuing?
So we have two different elements. We have the teams. Teams come and barbecue, and they serve to judges. They'll also give out some samples to people walking around. But their main purpose is.
I'd like to be a judge at the next event.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best job. And we screen our judges. We want to make sure they understand and know what they're looking for and understand the quality. Hey, I don't doubt it.
Podcasters make great judges for barbecues. I'm just telling you now.
Exactly. And you get the added PR too. It's great.
Exactly.
So the other aspect of it is we sell to the masses barbecue, and I got about 3 years ago. I prepare all the food to sell to the masses at the concession stands at the event, which is a pretty crazy undertaking. I mean, we're serving well over 1,000 people.
Like steaks and ribs, and what do you sell?
We're doing no steaks. We're doing ribs. A lot of barbecue brisket, smoked brisket, either in sliced form, chopped form. And in Kansas City, we have what's called burnt ends, which is the fatty part of the brisket. After it's smoked, I cube it up, pour some sauce over it, and stick it back in the smoker a little till it gets a little more done. And those are delicious. It's like meat candy. Oh, and that's a signature item that I'm known for and that the city is known for. And then chicken, and you got to have hot dogs for the kids. But
sure. So that's when and so you get a few thousand people coming?
Yes.
That's amazing. So and then judges, who won? How many different people entered the contest? And like, what type of contest did you have? Like the best ribs or the best chicken wings? Like what type of stuff?
We have 4 categories. We have chicken, ribs, turkey, and brisket.
Okay.
So
and how many people?
They've got to compete in all 4 categories, and we had 23 teams compete this year.
Wow.
And all from across the board, some Jewish, not Jewish, professional, amateur. One of the teams that happened to work out, the Cheder was in town for it, and he was part of one of the teams, which was pretty entertaining.
That's funny.
And I was joking around. We had a guy named Simon Majumdar. He's a judge on the Food Network. He came and kind of was MC of the event, and we connected with him as a whole interesting story. And it kind of actually gets into how I started my business. But we connected through him. He was writing a book about his experiences in different food things in the United States, and he heard about our event. He's like, that would be great. I could get Jewish and I could get barbecue at the same time. So he came. So I was kidding around. We had what would a Food Network guy and Cheder be doing at the same time, same event? So it was fun. It was a great event.
That's great. Who won the award?
A barbecue team from Liberty, Missouri. They call themselves the McGuire University Culinary Institute, which is a fictional university out of Chicago, which is a whole other comedic concept.
Wait. Is it they're from Missouri, but your fake university is from Chicago?
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Why not?
Right. So people come for this event, they're buying ribs, they're buying briskets, they're buying the works, pickles, drinks, all that stuff. Everybody's having a great time, and then you have this contest, and it's a fundraiser. Also, you said?
Yeah, I mean it's designed to be a fundraiser. How's that? We're still working on that part.
That's great. I mean, that's funny. So you have one. And how many of these kosher barbecue contests are there? Like I saw that as we just mentioned, there's one in Southern New England, the Kosher BBQ and Craft Fair. Right.
They just had one there on August 30th.
Oh, that was 2 days ago.
Yep.
3 days ago.
This past Sunday.
And how was that?
And it was great. I mean, it was a great organized event. They had over 4,000 people came out from all across the spectrum of observance of Jews and non-Jews alike. And that's really one of the beauties about all the cities that have these events. It really is a community event, and it's a celebration. To me, it's a celebration of kosher. We're taking one of America's food categories and making it kosher, and everybody can get together, and everybody, regardless of what they want that day, they're eating kosher. It's a really cool thing.
This one was hosted by Congregation Bethel?
Yeah, Bethel in Fairfield, Connecticut. So now there's about, I may be missing one, but there's about 10 of them now across the country.
That's amazing. That's great.
I went to the one in Chicago in June. Chicago just had their second annual. I was invited back after the first, and it was a good competition for me. I was grand champion, so I'm not going to complain.
Grand champion of Chicago barbecue.
And
Wow.
then this past weekend in Fairfield, I was lucky to be able to win the grand champion there too.
Amazing. So you have a team, or you just go and like you prepare it on the spot over there and barbecue it there, or how does it work?
Yeah, everything's done there. Since the whole kashrus part of it, they supply pretty much everything. They'll supply the grills or smokers and utensils. I generally have to go out and buy some ingredients, but they supply the meats and everything. So it's nice because if you're going somewhere as a destination, I went there, I brought a couple stuff with me, but everything pretty much was there. And I cook. I'm a solo team. Sometimes I'll have somebody, depending where I am, come and help me. But all the cooking and recipe is all kind of a little bit of a mini dictatorship. But it seems to be working. So it's a lot of work. It's not easy, but I enjoy it and it's fun, and yeah, we're doing well. I'm competing in Dallas, Bezras Hashem. They're having their first kosher barbecue, the Dallas Kosher BBQ Championship in October. So there's one in Atlanta a week or so before, but I'm not going to be able to make it to that one in October. So I'm hoping I'll do well there too.
We're gonna have to. We'll link to all these different shows and contests in the show notes, so you can check them out at the website. But this is just a lot of fun. I mean, you're having a great time. You're going around do all these contests, and now, so how did we get into making your own barbecue sauce?
So I think after my first contest that I actually competed in, the one that we do here in Kansas City, I don't compete in because I run it and it's just way too complicated to be able to do that. I went to Long Island they were doing kosher barbecue contest then, and I was messing around with a couple of sauce ideas, and when I got back a week or so later, a bunch of my wife's extended family decided we're going to have a barbecue, and I did well there, won a couple trophies, and I have to make everything I made in Long Island, I have to make for the barbecue at our house.
Well, of course. I mean, that makes sense.
Exactly. Everybody, they were all jealous. They were all upset that they didn't get to go and they didn't get to taste anything. So I made a bunch of the different meats, the brisket, the chicken, ribs, and I was fooling around with a sauce of my own. Usually, until then, I was basically just mixing different sauces together or doctoring up a store-bought sauce. But I was playing around with a recipe for our own, and I made it and got rave reviews from the family. And then already, this is where it goes back a little. Even when I worked at the kosher deli department, that people somehow gravitated towards me there, and I would have people go, "Mendel, you need to have your own food brand, your own item. You need to have a Mendel something." And what do I know? I'm just a guy I never went to culinary because I don't have a restaurant. We make, rotisserie chicken and fried chicken. No major culinary discoveries are going on in our deli here. But it was nagging me. And, if enough people tell you something, you realize, hey, if they're thinking about it, maybe I'm missing the boat on something. So I was this was before the whole barbecue sauce thing or barbecue thing. I was talking to the owner of the company I worked for. He has 30-something grocery stores. Ball's Foods Company, and they own a bunch of the small chain in Kansas City area. And I was telling him my idea, and he's like, it's not a bad idea, but product-wise, you have to figure out a product that works for you. So try to look around whenever you go to somebody's house, look in their refrigerator, see what everybody's got in their refrigerator. If you can find something everybody has, there's probably room for you to be able to try to get into that as a category. And it kind of just stuck in the back of my mind. So when I got started with the barbecue sauce and mixing my own and people liking it, it's like, you know what? Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the item. Everybody's got at least one in their house.
Right.
So that's when I started looking into what it would take.
Especially in Kansas City.
Exactly. But really anywhere.
Yeah, it's true.
So I started looking into what it would take to make it, to manufacture it more than just bottles at a time. And that was right about before one of our kosher barbecue competitions. And that was the first one that Simon came in for. And I decided to make a big batch of the Simon Majumdar. He's a judge on a bunch of shows on the Food Network, Cutthroat Kitchen, Iron Chef, a bunch of that stuff. Wow. He knows his food.
He's an expert. He's amongst them.
Exactly. So I decided to make a bunch of bottles and sell them at our event and kind of get some feedback, and also put one bottle in each one of the judges. Good, they get a little bit of a thank you bag, a gift bag.
Interesting.
And that's what I did. I figured I'd get some good feedback from it, and I did. I got a lot of feedback, and I think the turning point was when he said he wrote me a little letter the next day saying he was on his way back to the airport. He opened up the bottle of sauce, took a lick, and he was like, "Wow, this guy's onto something. It's delicious. It's tasty. It's not just a good kosher sauce. It's a good barbecue sauce, period."
Amazing.
So that was kind of my moment where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stick my neck out and see if I can run with this.
That's fantastic. I love that story. That's just fantastic. Because that's your tip. That's like what an entrepreneur goes out. He takes a risk. He makes something, gets into the judges' hands at a barbecue. It's just you're using your thinking. You're using your head to come up. How can I get people to respond? How do I really know if it's good? And you get one of the top chefs, or in America, and you get into his hands, and then he likes it so much that he sends you a note about it. That's just brilliant. And now that you know it was tested, now you got the feedback. Now you know what? I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to go out. I'm going to do this. So just before we jump to that, what you prepared the first batch in your kitchen for this barbecue contest. How'd you bottle it? Did you have labels?
So I used a little bit of my connections in the koshers. I had one of our customers had a test kitchen. It was mainly used for baking products. But I asked them if they'd allow me to come in and do it all right and bottle sauce there. But it was all by hand. I printed up labels at Kinko's. It didn't have nutritional facts. It was nothing formal. I had a label design. I found a graphic designer once I knew I wanted to run with it, who put together a really incredible label design, or at least the general concept of it.
Do you still have it?
And I've had a few ideas of stuff over the years, and I've used him for a few things. So I knew he does a great job. His name is Yossi Belkin. Yossi Graphic Design.
Cool.
He's out of Florida. He's really, really gifted. So it looked good. We printed out labels at Kinko's. I bottled them by hand at this person with a little help from her and some of her workers. And that was the first run.
That's amazing. That's great. And then the feedback was phenomenal. So, okay, so now how do you take it to the next level? People like it, got the recipe down.
So that's where it got a little more complicated. And like I said, it's still an uphill battle. So I started asking around some people I know who had barbecue sauce manufactured, where I could find a company that makes, it's called a co-packer. In general, unless companies are really, really huge, very few make their own food products.
Right.
Unless they're either really small and niche or they're really large. Everybody in the middle, they have a formula, and then they find someone who can manufacture it for them.
Right.
So I found in Kansas City, we have a whole bunch of them that make barbecue sauces, but none of them were kosher, and none of them at the time had the capacity to do kosher.
Okay.
So finding one that would also do kosher, I was able to find one out of state and started talking to them, find out what their minimum is, how much it would cost. And then that's where it was kind of the hurry up and wait. So I had to send them my formula. They made a batch in their test kitchen using the ingredients, because I'm using, let's say I'm using Heinz brand tomato paste, and this brand, that brand. If they're using their brands that they're buying in mass market, it's a totally different taste.
Sure.
So they've got to play around with it a little bit. So the first batch they sent back tasted nothing like my sauce. I don't even know.
So frustrating.
I don't get it. And yes, it was. Then we got one back and forth. Another time we talked about each ingredient, breaking down. They got samples of some of the ingredients I used to see if they could mimic the flavor. And right around Pesach time, actually, that was I think probably almost 3 years ago now. It's crazy. We got the bottle that I opened and tasted and said, this is it.
Wow.
And one of the components of my sauce.
So how long was the process from the time you first sent in your recipe till you got what you wanted?
Almost a year.
Wow.
I would say it was, not it was summer to April. So about 9 months.
So about 10 months. 10 months. Wow. So you are a perfectionist. You said that to me before.
Well, it's got to be what it is. You can't misrepresent it. If it isn't what I want it to be, it's not mine.
I think it's another great lesson for entrepreneurs out there is that, be patient. It takes patience. I think Mayor Goodman when interviewed said that also, that you have to have patience in order to succeed, and you may want to get your product out, but make sure it is exactly what you want it to be. And kol kavod for waiting and insisting that you got exactly what you wanted.
Right. I mean, you only get one first impression, so you want it to be
That's
your best.
True. So
one of the components in my sauce is my seasoning mix, my rub. So that's made by another company. So it's kind of, I guess you could call it like the secrecy, where neither one has the whole recipe. But part of it is most places that do wet recipes don't do dry. So you have to do different ones anyways. So once I was already having it made because it goes in my sauce, I also had it bottled. I had labels made and I had it bottled. And that went a little quicker, but it took a couple revisions. And finally, the first one they sent me was so spicy, it was out of control, which I loved, but I knew it wouldn't go over well.
Market.
But yeah, so once we figured out the right formula, at that point we needed to get the nutritional facts, and they have a program, and they're able to, the co-packer gets that done and get that to the graphic designer, get the final draft on the label, figure out where to get the labels from, get them ordered, get them to the manufacturer. So and then I had to get my rub made first, because I had to have that sent to the sauce manufacturer. And so I finally got my first bottles of rub probably in about March of this past March.
Okay.
And then I got my first, after getting that with the labels to the sauce company, I finally got my first shipment of sauce in May.
Wow.
Was it about May or June? Oh, no, it was in May. And there was that moment when my first shipment came in. It was a pretty small shipment, not even quite one full pallet, because it's still a test. You just never know. And I'll never forget the moment. I got brought in my office, and my wife came over, and we opened up a bottle and put it in little like shot glasses, and took a sip of it. And I tell you, I had some of the biggest anxiety I've ever had before. You just don't know, and if it wasn't right, you're back to the drawing board again.
Right.
And it tasted it, and I think she videoed it, and it was like, all right, we got it. This is it.
I want that video for the show. You got to send that to me.
Well, I'll see if we dig it up.
Dig it up somewhere.
And
how was that feeling? Tell me about that.
It was a huge relief. I get the chills little now, right? Thinking about it, and that's when it got real, though. So, till now, it was all
sitting on cases
hypothetical.
Of your own, yeah.
And now I've invested over the years. I've put money into one of the things you talk about with that I don't think, at least I as a budding entrepreneur, didn't necessarily really realize, is everything costs money. There are so many little details that it's constant. This needs to work out. You need to get something to do this, somebody to do that. You want a trademark, you've got to do this, you got to do that. Just nonstop. So at this point, I'm already, so to say, I've got a lot in on the deal. And then, so that's when it got real. And that's when I was able to start trying to push it and find stores to take it and distributors.
So how'd you get that first store signed up?
Well, the first one was the easiest, because it was a local barbecue store that I've always buying things from, and brought a couple samples over. Then they taste, they're like, all right, this is great. We'll carry it. No problem.
Awesome.
And then the store I used to work for, the Kosher Deli, they were on board right away theoretically, but since they're a semi-large company, there was a lot of paperwork I had to get through to get on their shelves. But now I'm in a couple of their stores.
Wow. How great is it to walk into a store and see your product on the shelves?
It's definitely one of the neatest feelings. I try not to forget that, because you start taking things for granted and you become a little calloused. But there still is that moment where you walk into the store and you see your name on a product on the shelf, and I have a caricature of my face on the bottle, and it's just neat. It's a very neat feeling.
I guess, but it's funny because people think that, okay, you put up some barbecue sauce. This is more than a year in the making. Maybe the actual production, getting the taste on, but this is all from your experience and everything that you did until that point. Everything you did, even in real estate and in selling jewelry and diamonds, has all led to the knowledge that you gathered to be able to do and produce your own products now.
Yeah, definitely. And the hashgacha pratis involved with it, and the different connections that I've made over the years, and in different areas that I've worked in or people that I've gotten to know, it's amazing which ones all of a sudden, that's the one that comes in and somebody recognizes you who knows you from somewhere, and the people I've gotten to know through competing in different barbecue contests, and then that helps so much, hugely.
I love it.
I mean, just this week, actually, my first large shipment just went out to a distributor in New York. So, B'ezras Hashem, I'll be hitting shelves all over the East Coast really soon. I think they're going to be pushing it pretty hard. So, I know I will.
Well, let us know. We'll definitely push it out to our audience, and we'll link to it and stuff. Let us know what stores they're at. But that's fantastic. So, New York distributor picked it up, and it's going to go all over the East Coast. I guess New York, New Jersey area.
Yep. Hopefully beyond that, mostly kosher stores, and hopefully Beautiful. Beyond that. That's the area I'm focusing on right now. I hope in the future to be able to get into some of the more larger markets and mainstream, but it's very crowded. There's a lot crowded category. There's a lot of barbecue sauces out there. Sure. Mine is definitely a competitor. It's quality, but I only have 2 products. So right. Big stores are hesitant to take on a brand that has 2 products. So. B'ezras Hashem,
so what's going to be?
Trying to get some more, trying to work on more ideas, more products. Before my first bottle even went on the shelf, I was already am working on figuring out the next products, the next part of the line, but just takes a little bit of time.
Sure. Well, I mean, this is a great story. I absolutely love it. I love, from an idea and following it, and from going to getting it done, and now to get it into store shelves. It's absolutely fantastic. Building your brand, really, and now B'ezras Hashem, you'll come with more products and you'll be matzliach with it. Let me just ask you a couple more questions, and we're gonna close this episode off. But so, what was some of the? Do you have any really great advice that someone gave you?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of good advice, and probably not listened to too much good advice, but. I think the best advice that I was given is to really try to write down your vision. If you have an idea of something, write it down. Write down where you want to be, not just now, but where you want to be later, because that at least helps you. It helps you keep focused and your eye on the prize. And when something does come up where there's an opportunity to expand, you're already there. You already thought it out, and you can jump on the opportunity. I'm still working on it, so I can't really talk about the details, but I had an idea last summer that was part of this. It was part of another expansion of my line, and the idea hit me. I wrote it down right away and started mapping out kind of what I wanted to do. And then I think a week later, somebody was talking about a company that possibly I could partner with on it. That just like that. I told them I want to talk to them. I had a meeting a few months later, and we're still in talks. Of course, these things take forever, it seems like, but we're getting much closer. So mapping your vision so you know at least what you want to do, whether or not you're going to get there or not. That's probably some of the best advice I've gotten. And I'm always looking for other advice because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Excellent. But you know what? You're figuring out by doing, which is something I talk a lot about on this podcast, is that instead of spending years just trying to figure out or to learn, you're learning on the road. You're learning by actually doing it. So, kol hakavod to you. This has been a very exciting podcast episode. I really love your story. I can't wait to continue to hear some great things. I think we're going to do a contest. I got to figure out how to do it, but we're going to give away some of your awesome sauce and rubs to a lucky winner. Got to figure out how to do that. But
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I definitely want to get some of get some of your. I want to taste it myself. I guess I have to wait till it gets to Israel. But
yeah, well, I just sent some samples with somebody to talk to an importer, because one thing I did notice when I visited Israel, there's not a lot of any American barbecue sauces there. And I don't know if Israelis would be into it, but there's a lot of Americans, and slowly but surely, you never know. Barbecue is starting to catch on all over the world. A friend of mine in Israel just told me he went to a barbecue class at a Weber dealership in Israel, where they were smoking meats and stuff. Yep. I mean, I awesome. Had no idea. So.
Neither did I, and I live here.
And that's definitely on my agenda, too. I'd like to do some traveling, do some classes. People contact me all the time with questions. And I've coached many people through some cooks in their backyards. So and that's fun for me. I really love that component of it.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And yeah, I mean, my sauce and rub are available in a couple stores already on the East Coast. They're available in a couple kosher stores in the LA market.
Excellent.
In Miami, Chicago, and Jewel. So,
and you said they're on Amazon, or they're going to be on Amazon?
I think the rub is already listed. Sauces coming soon, and they're on we're selling a bunch from a website called BBQ-addicts.com, which is BBQ-addicts.com. They've got my rub and my sauce. So
awesome. So we're going to link to that also so people can get it right away. Okay, Mendel, this has been absolutely fantastic. I'm inspired. I love your story. I love your products. Keep rocking it. Thank you so much for taking the time for being on the show.
Yeah, Nachum, I really appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out to me and urging me to do it. It's fun.
Yeah, no, this has been great. So thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing Hatzlacha.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Frum Entrepreneur Podcast with Nachum Kligman. We hope you learned something valuable, and we'll share this with your friends. For show notes, archives of previous episodes, and more information to help you start